Hello, and welcome to my podcast, I am writing, an account of my chaotic personal journey about the joy and pain, writing, pitching and promoting my first book and first screenplay. Episode 6. How I found film producers to pitch and promote my screenplay to. The location in my screenplay is London, and the time period is from 1939 to 1960. The protagonist, Olga, my mother, is a young Jamaican girl. Now, from a pitching point of view, this presented a handicap because of the location and the fact that all the characters were British. Therefore, only UK producers would be interested. There was no hook in it for Hollywood, so it was pointless my pitching to US producers. I did approach a couple of Jamaican producers, but there was no interest. The expert's advice when looking for a producer for your screenplay is that you look on the movie database, IMDb, to see what films are of a similar genre to your screenplay. I can see the logic in that, but sometimes they and directors are looking for something different. A bit like actors. They don't want to be pigeonholed into doing the same genre over and over again. In my experience, the hardest part in finding producers on IMDb is being able to contact them. The majority don't publish their contact details. What you do get is their agent or a manager's email address. Good luck writing to them, because they certainly have never, ever responded to any approach I've made. To access producers' names, I set up a series of Google alerts with pertinent search titles. I looked up the 2013 and 2014 programmes for the London Screenwriters Festival, noting the producers who attended. I Googled the top 50 UK produced films, noting down the producers. I Googled the top 20 British directors, checked their films out and noted down who had produced them. I attended the Toronto Film Festival and utilised the delegates list. In my experience, 9 out of 10 film production companies will not accept unsolicited scripts, which makes it incredibly hard for a new screenwriter to get to first base with their screenplay, which is a producer reading it. In the entire time I've been pitching my screenplay, which is a few years, I've only ever found 2 websites which welcomed unsolicited scripts. BBC Films and the Red Production Company, both in London. I never ever sent an unsolicited script, but I did send pitching emails about Olga, that's the name of my screenplay, to hundreds of film production companies, the majority of whom ignored my email, but some didn't. I wrote what I considered was a really good initial pitch email, which included a logline and a short summary, succinct and to the point, and I got 3 requests for my screenplay. I was ecstatic. Cracked it, I thought. Wrong again. Back came rejection emails. One producer described the story as powerful, heartbreaking and relevant, particularly in light of the 2015 #OscarsSoWhite controversy. But the screenplay still needed more work. Again, my writing was too on the nose. And there was no subtext. Subtext is what a character is really saying between the lines, and is revealed by their actions and reactions. If the text is the surface, what we see and hear, then the subtext is what lies beneath. I found learning how to write subtext challenging, and it took me ages to get to grips with it. I decided to attend the London Screenwriters Festival, and grabbed the opportunity to do some face-to-face pitching with producers who were attending the festival. Ye gods, that was hard. Needless to say, I'd done no preparation beforehand. I thought I could rattle off what my screenplay was about, no bother. But rather than rattle, I rambled. The experts say you should learn to pitch the same script to different people in different ways, so forget about reading from a piece of paper. One expert said to be prepared to read their eyes so you can reel them back in if they're losing interest. Well, not only could I see the producer I was sitting opposite losing interest, But I could also see he was losing the will to live. Try reeling him back in from that state. Overall, it was an interesting experience and reassuring to chat with other new screenwriters who were experiencing pretty much the same problem I was. I had pitched to a number of film production companies with an inadequate screenplay. In my eagerness to get some idea of how my screenplay was tracking, I'd made a huge mistake by again going to the marketplace with a screenplay that wasn't strong enough. You only get one shot at that critical first impression, and I realized I'd wasted it on a weak screenplay. Producers rarely give a screenplay a second read. I'd shot myself in the foot by pitching far too early. I was angry with myself and felt like I was drowning because I didn't seem to be able to move forward. Finally, I did something I should have done much earlier in my writing. I decided to look for a mentor and posted a tweet asking for professional help. Enter Hamish Downey, an Australian film producer, music producer, and screenwriter whose film projects include producing An American Piano and Matcha and Vanilla. Hamish and I had many Skype sessions reworking my screenplay. His mentoring of me and experience as a screenwriter was instrumental in helping me get Olga into better shape. After working a few months together, I again pitched it to a couple of UK film production companies, confident that Olga would pique interest. The professional in-house reader of one of the UK production companies I'd pitched to had recommended that the company take up my screenplay. They had 4 company directors, and there had to be a unanimous agreement on projects they take on. Unfortunately, the decision wasn't unanimous. In fact, it was 3-1 against taking on the project. The company director, I'll call him Philip, but that's not his real name, in favour of proceeding with my screenplay, advised me of his company's decision, but also made it clear, in spite of the rejection, he was impressed with the story and could see its potential. Around this time, I planned to visit Toronto to meet some newly discovered Jamaican cousins. At the same time, the Toronto Film Festival was taking place, so I decided to register as a delegate to attend the festival, which entitled me to a comprehensive list of all delegates attending. I cannot tell you how useful that delegate list was, because it had the contact details of a lot of the producers attending. I saw that among the movie people attending was Philip's name, so I emailed him to ask if we could meet. Although he thought it unlikely, because he had back-to-back meetings, he did say if the gap appeared in his diary, he'd contact me. After my experience pitching at the London Film Festival, I decided to forget pitching per se, but just talk to people about my screenplay, as if I was talking to a relative or a friend. That way I was able to do a fair bit of networking. I was having lunch one day when I got a text from Philip saying if I was available, he could meet me in half an hour. I couldn't believe my luck. It was a constructive and informative meeting, and it was clear how much he liked the story. But he reiterated that the screenplay needed some work, and suggested I contact Linda Seeger, one of the foremost script consultants in the world, to help me get it over the line. Philip told me to keep in touch with him and to let him see the next draft. Knowing that a UK film producer who had major film credits to his name was interested in my screenplay was huge for me. In spite of all the mistakes I had made going to the market with an inadequate screenplay, I'd found a producer who saw the potential of my story and was prepared to take a second look. It was difficult for me to believe I'd got this far, me, a newbie, almost unheard of. I contacted Linda Seeger and we worked together on Olga. Linda became emotionally invested in the story, so much so that after our final session she wrote, "I love your script and have worked on over 2,500 projects since 1981, and this one has stood out for me. I am emotionally involved, love the rich context, and it awakens my empathy. I would love to see this made." I was blown away by such an endorsement. I sent the latest draft to Philip, who said it had improved considerably, but needed a final polish, so that it could attract major talent. He told me that while I had been working on the revisions, he'd been talking to investors who were interested in putting up the development money to pay for optioning my book and screenplay. I had to pinch myself. I couldn't believe it. Philip had in mind a well-respected UK professional screenwriter with prestigious credits to their name to do the polish. The screenwriter had read Olga and was very keen to start work on it. Philip was just waiting for confirmation from the funders before formally optioning both the rights to my book and screenplay. However, as they say in Hollywood, things can turn on a dime. The funders at the last minute decided not to proceed. To say I was upset was an understatement. But I took comfort from reminding myself over and over again that I, a newbie, had got this far. This is an aspect of the movie business that can really get one down. A number of producers requested a copy of my screenplay, but for whatever reason they decided not to proceed with it. I continued pitching randomly to a couple of directors rather than producers. One responded very favourably and absolutely loved the story, felt it was relevant, being about immigration and other social prejudices. They wanted to take out an option on the film rights to the book and the screenplay, but I had issues with the terms, so I declined the option offer. Can you believe a new, inexperienced screenwriter declines an option offer? Stupid or what? But let me tell you why I turned it down. My screenplay could not be more personal to me. It's a true story about my Jamaican mother, about her moral courage, her integrity, and her faith. Much as I wanted it to be made into a film, I wanted to trust those involved and feel that they were invested in her story. Philip gets Olga, which explains why he's been chasing development funds in between making other films for over 2 years, in fact getting on for 3 years. I didn't get a sense of emotional investment from the director who made the option offer, and I have absolutely no regrets about turning that offer down. Had Philip's option emanated, I would not have turned it down. Given his past movie credits, I was humbled that he was, and still is, invested in my screenplay. My random pitching to film directors brought forth another opportunity in the form of a director-writer who had just completed a film. Not only had he read my screenplay, he'd also bought the book. Like Philip, he said the screenplay needed a polish and that he would like to do that polish. He also mentioned that he was interested in directing the film. He was clearly invested, but to move things forward, again development funds had to be raised. For a time it looked like something might happen. Past experience has taught me not to get my hopes up, because things can change in a heartbeat in the movie business, and so it did here too. The director has moved on to something else, and Philip is deeply immersed in his current film-producing projects. When I was 8 years old, I saw my first film. It was called Never Take No for an Answer. It's about a little orphan boy, Peppino, whose precious donkey, Violetta, falls ill, and he wants to take the donkey into the crypt of St. Francis in his local church. St. Francis is the patron saint of animals. Peppino hopes this visit will make Violetta well, but everyone he goes to for permission says no, he can't take Violetta into the crypt. So Peppino decides to ask the Pope himself. He makes the long and hard journey to Rome, with many obstacles in his way, to see the Pope who, to cut a long story short, in the end says yes, Violetta can go into the crypt of St. Francis. The moral of the story resonated with me as a child, and still does, even though it's nearly 70 years since I first saw the film. It's about tenacity and perseverance. Tenacity and perseverance is a good way to describe my writing journey. A producer once told me that things in the movie business seem to happen sometimes when you least expect them. Out of the blue, I got an email from Philip advising me that he might have found someone to put forward the development funds for my screenplay. Whilst naturally I was pleased, my reaction was, okay, let's wait and see. Fingers crossed. My journey continues to bring Olga to the screen. I cannot and won't give up. And nor should you if you have a dream. Maybe you want to write a book, or you have an idea for an invention, or maybe you want to become an actor or start your own business. Travel around the world, whatever. It may take a while to achieve your dream, but if you're passionate about what you want, you can make it happen. It was Winston Churchill who said, and I quote, "Never give up on something you can't go a day without thinking about." That's the end of my podcast. #I am writing. I hope you've enjoyed these episodes and they've helped you with your writing journey. Don't forget you can contact me at mariecampbell43@gmail.com. Thank you for listening and goodbye.